Is there finally a shift happening in the Gulf Front condo market? The numbers are in for Hidden Dunes for April of 2022. I'm Craig Duran with the Duran Group over at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. There are a number of important trends we're watching. I want to share those with you today. First off, if you know anyone that might benefit from this, please share this with them or encourage them to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We like to regularly, once a month or so, update people on the Gulf Front market, on the housing market. I'm getting a lot of good feedback that people like the information. So if there's anyone you know that may not be receiving this, please share that with them. Let's get right to the numbers. There's a few things I think that are important to watch that are a little different than what we've been talking about here recently in the market. So first of all, let's talk about how markets move and shift, supply and demand. If condo prices are going to go from here to here, it wouldn't happen overnight. Things would happen, especially in real estate, things are happening a lot slower than like in the stock market when you have real volatile days happening. But you would start to see some trends happening of, if prices are moving up, you see some trends when prices start to slow down and you start to see some flattening and you start to see the other direction. Now we can get momentum in both directions, but when things are shifting, there's subtle things that we watch to see if that's happening. So check out some of these numbers because I do think we are seeing some shifts in supply and demand. Spreadsheet you're looking at here tracks a few different things. The main thing I want to focus on today is the second and the fourth column here, B and D. Active, think about that as supply. Active means how many active condos are for sale in the market at any given time. We're tracking it week over week, comparing it to the year before. New contracts, think about that as demand. How many people are buying and writing new contracts on condos? Let's go through this pretty quickly. I don't want to dig into each specific number, but just look at this in general and look at the red and the green and what's happening here. So supply in January, I've got this highlighted for January. January, we were down about 50%, meaning buyers had 50% fewer choices if they wanted to buy a condo over the year before. And the year before was already a hot market. So that's a scorchingly hot market in January. Buyers just didn't have much to choose from, but they still wanted to buy. Look, 36, 9, 16, 17% more condo contracts being written year over year. Look at what happened in February very quickly to the red and the green. We're still down 50%. Buyers have fewer choices, but all of a sudden buyers are writing fewer contracts. We're now into the negative. 17, 10, 17, 24% fewer contracts written in February year over year. We had just been in the positive the month before. Now look at this in March. Instead of down 50% as far as choice, we now have 40%, 34, 27, 11%. We're adding units to the market. Instead of having 50% fewer choices, buyers ended up that month with just 11%. So we almost had our level of choice back. And then look at this. Demand is even further down, 47, 51, 49% year over year. The market's shifting. And then look at this, red and green. It's the easiest way to see it. Look at now, for the first time in 4 months and longer than that, we now actually have more supply than we did this time last year. As much as from 2 to as much as 25% more in the condo market, and the number of new contracts is still down. So supply and demand is pretty clear. We're seeing a shift there. Let's look at how that affects our months of inventory number. Remember, months of inventory in real estate helps us track the pace of sales, how hot or cold a market is. 4 or 5 months of inventory represents a neutral market, meaning that the process would take 4 or 5 months to work normally. If the number is lower than that, that means the process is happening faster. That means you have a hotter market. You're in a seller's market. January, we were 0.54 months of inventory, half a month. Theoretically, we would sell out of the entire condo market in half a month. That's how hot the market was. That's how much demand there was. That's how little supply there was. Fast forward to April, we're almost 5 times slower, cooler than we were in January. We're at 2.27 months of inventory now. Theoretically, then, it'll take a condo 2 to 2.2 months to sell 60 plus days where we were used to 10 and 15 days just not so long ago. One thing that just popped into my head that I want to talk about. We don't feel this. If you're not working in this market every day, you don't feel this. You still hear plenty of stories across the country. I was at a real estate conference last week, and it's a bunch of high-powered agents from San Diego, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Rhode Island, Atlanta, Orlando, Vancouver, Toronto, and story after story after story of people trying to buy houses, and still a hot market. But a little bit different in when you're trying to find a place to live versus just a second home or investment. So notice the trend. We're adding supply. We're having a little less demand for this stuff. At some point, when we reach neutral market territory, generally prices will flatten out a little bit. If we keep going and that number keeps getting higher and we get into buyer market territory, that means buyers have all the choices they want. And if a seller wants to sell, they're going to have to reduce their price to do that. In Hidden Dunes, there is not a lot of data. There are not a lot of condo sales in there recently. So it's a little difficult to track the market in there. In March, we were at 1 month of inventory. Units were selling very quickly in February and March, sort of mirroring how hot things were in February or March. The only sale we've had in Hidden Dunes in the last 2 months is one for $950,000. Remember, we did have some sales that drift over $1 million in there. We do have a couple units that are going to come out shortly in one of the real desirable stacks that are upgraded that probably will warrant going over the $1 million mark. But as of this month, $950,000 was the most recent sale that we've got. A couple of things to keep in mind. If you're an owner in Hidden Dunes, if you're thinking about selling at any given point, the market is shifting, or at least showing some signs of that. If we want to project out a little bit, look at what happened in April, May, June, July of last year. The red line in this chart represents the number of units for sale, or our supply again. Very quickly, we added a lot of units to the market in just those few months. And think about this for just a second. It makes a lot of sense. Buyers who enter into beach season, who haven't bought anything yet, and who maybe plan on, hey, I'll come down to the beach for my vacation and I'll look around and I'll buy a condo while I'm there. It's a common thing. Most of these condominium units are occupied or rented in those summer months. And it's very difficult to show someone, it's very difficult to schedule a showing appointment because they're occupied. We're just not going to get in and show them while there are guests in there. So what happens, even though you may have some demand, we write fewer contracts. We end up with less demand in the data because we just can't get anything. We can't get anything to contract. It wouldn't be surprising to see that trend again this summer. And if we're already in a place where the market is adding some supply and we add more supply pretty aggressively through the summertime, we pretty quickly could reach that neutral market, maybe even drift into buyer market territory in some of the buildings across the beach, maybe even the whole market. So if that's the case, and we have our normal rush in September, October, August, September, some buyers coming back to the market, you may have a more patient buyer, a patient buyer with more choice. Sellers may have to work harder to get their units sold. They're going to need to be staged right. They're going to need to be in excellent condition. If we have a lot of competition in any given building, that's where you might start to see pressure on pricing. At the very least, you would think that appreciation would have to slow down and prices would have to flatten out. At some point, if that trend continues long enough, and now you have a lot of competition in a building and some sellers who really want to liquidate or sell their property, then that's where you see prices have to pull back a little bit. I just ran numbers on Calypso, the previous video I just shot. Calypso has drifted in April into sort of neutral buyer market territory, 5.5 months of inventory in that building. So from a strategy standpoint, think about a few things. If you're selling in 2022, think about starting the process sooner rather than later. It appears as of now, and it would be easy to project that we probably have more competition end of summer than we do now. If you're selling and you would rather sell with fewer competitors than more competitors. If you want to hold it through the summer for either you're going to use it or for rental purposes, rather than wait until September, Labor Day or late August, start the process sooner than you might think. We need to pick a pretty day with a photographer and a videographer to shoot all the media. Think about late June, early July to start the process. Not only do we have to marry a perfect weather day with when the unit's vacant and clean, editing takes some time. And if you do all of that, put it on the market, you probably still have a contract that closes in 30 days from them. And now you're already starting to get to the end of beach season, end of rental season anyway. And releasing something in early, middle July versus September, maybe a big difference in the amount of supply or amount of competitors you might have trying to sell. Just think about this chart that we just put out there and see how quickly in 3 or 4 months that can happen. So think about that if you're selling, if it's strictly trying to maximize on the number. Thanks for watching. I know that's 11 minutes of kind of deep stuff, but I haven't drilled into hidden dunes recently. So hope this is helpful. Please share with anyone you know that may benefit. And we'll be back next month with some more information.